Hello, my name is Ashley, this is Faithful Rattos, and welcome or welcome back. So in this video, we are going to be talking about feeding wet food for rats. This is the second part of the series on rat diet, and we're going to be being inspired by this book, The New Scuttling Gourmet by Alison Campbell. It is a new edition, and this edition is focusing a lot on feeding rats an ancestrally appropriate diet and moving away from a diet full of grains. And an important part of that is moving away from the grains in the dry mix, and a super important part, the majority important part, is feeding a good fresh/cooked meal to your rats as well. And we're going to be talking about those right now. So I personally try to feed a couple of wet meals a week. That is just based on my schedule, what I can do. And for a lot of people, less than that is more doable. Some people I know try to feed 50-50. I think it's a lot more expensive to do that, and it's a lot harder to make sure you have the time to prepare those meals, so it's not always possible. And I think even a little bit of fresh is better than no fresh at all. We're going to be talking about the guide that you should follow to make a balanced meal every single time. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, you don't have to follow an exact recipe, but if you're following these guidelines, you're going to be hitting all the nutritional needs that your rats need. So I'm just going to be reading straight from the book. So in a 50-gram meal per rat, this is what you should include. 15 grams of it should be leafy plants and herbs, so this is lettuces, kale, spinach, herbs like dill and parsley and basil and things like that. Then 14 grams should be all of the vegetables and fruit, 2 grams of seeds, 2 grams of nuts, fungi, which is mushrooms, cooked, that makes their nutrients more readily available, 5 grams, and then 2 grams or a pinch for dry of algae or seaweed, legumes including tofu, wet, soaked, sprouted or cooked, 2 grams, grains, soaked, sprouted or cooked as well, 7 grams, and then invertebrates, eggs and small fish, 1 to 4 grams. The lower weight is for dried insects and fish. When feeding fresh eggs or fish, it needs to be a little bit higher because of the water content in the food, which makes it heavier. And so using those proportions, you are going to be feeding a balanced meal for your rats, and it's going to be making it easier if you sort of think about those different sections when you're adding things into your dish. I'm going to show you in the second part of this video one of the meals I've made for my rats, but it generally follows the same sort of routine, the same guidelines, and that way I know that my wet meals are balanced and the rats are getting everything they need for that meal. I tend to feed 1 to 2 times a week a balanced wet meal. I try to do it a little bit more often than that, not always can I manage it, and that's okay. I don't want to make this video and make people feel like they're a terrible owner because they don't feed any wet. I think any wet is better than no wet at all, and I get that it can be quite overwhelming and worrisome that you aren't feeding balance, and it's much easier, I think, for a lot of people to do that in a dry mix, but making this balanced meal isn't that difficult. And I think even if it's very rarely, if it's just occasionally, it's beneficial for your rats. I also use my wet meals to add in supplements like oils to make coat condition better and other things like that. And I think my rats really enjoy their wet food, their fresh food, and it's really fun. I enjoy making it. So now I'm going to show you one of my dishes. So now that we've done the informative part of the video, I thought I'd share all the things that I'm going to be making in the meal today and all of the supplements. So we'll start with the base. So here we have some, I think it's baby jam lettuce, I don't know. Normally I'd like to add something like spinach or kale, but I just didn't get it this time. We've got parsley, coriander and basil for our base. Then for veggies, I freeze them out of convenience, as I mentioned before, so that they can get a good variety. Here we've got white cabbage, carrot, courgette, red pepper and green beans, so that is in here. Then for legumes, I've got some chopped nuts, so this is cashews, almonds and peanuts. Then for grains, I have some cooked buckwheat, so that is here. For protein, I'm using something out of the fridge I'm using ham because I already had this in the fridge and I didn't want it to go to waste, and I like to do that as much as possible with the rats' food. Then I also have a cooked selection of mushrooms. As I mentioned before, mushrooms are a superfood for everybody, including rats, and to get the best to get the best nutrients out of them, cooking them. So these have been sauteed just with a little bit of oil. These are, I think, oyster, the tiny little ones, I can't remember what they're called, and a couple of other capped ones. So that's all of the ingredients that I'm going to add in. Sometimes I will have some shoots, but I didn't have the chance to do that this time, so we don't have shoots. Now on to the supplements. So this was new. I got this from my friend Hannah. You might have seen, she sent me this in a package. So this is mushroom powder. So we've got lion's mane, turkey tail, reishi, cordyceps, maitake, and chaga. Mushrooms are a superfood, so if I don't have this awesome array of mushrooms, I like to add this in. On the same line, I've got green mush, which has, so the ingredients, we have spirulina mana, corallina mana, like there's just a bunch of good stuff in there. So I like to use green mush. Then these supplement you might have heard of before. This is the CaCUD3 from Rat Rations. So this contains calcium, copper, and vitamin D, which is very important for rats. I also like to add oils to their diet for healthy fur and skin. So the ones I've currently got are flax, salmon, and omega. These are also from Rat Rations. I like to buy these little bottles because a lot of them a lot of the oils lose their potency once they've been opened. So having the smaller bottles is beneficial. And then also this is Pro-C. This is some probiotic. So yeah, that is everything, and I'm going to just make it now. So, and here it is all mixed together. So this does look like a lot of food. However, it comes in weighing just over the 350 gram mark, the food, obviously without the plate. And when you're feeding wet food, as I mentioned before, you're feeding 3 to 4 times the normal amount that they get. And they get about 85 to 90 grams of dry food per sitting. So they get that twice a day. And so this is just 4 times that weight. I've gotten pretty good at eyeballing the amount, as I've had this amount of rats for quite a while. And yeah, so I'm going to go and give this to the boys and they're going to enjoy it. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed watching me make my rats wet food. This was what I fed them a couple of days ago now. I'm actually filming this at a different time to when I filmed that video. I hoped it was informative. If you have any questions, do leave them down below. Do grab yourself a copy of this book. I think it's available on Amazon or directly from Alison herself. Do also join Ratwise, which is Alison's rat community. It's a great, wonderful rat community that is filled with thoughtful, science-based people, and I really enjoy being a part of it. Talking about memberships, I also have a channel membership, so if you want to join my channel to get extra content and other different perks like merch and a letter once a month, please do look down there and look at the join button and join if you want to. If you don't want to join, you can still subscribe and give me a like. If you have any questions or comments or anything to add, leave them down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!